If Noah Cameron throws well tonight, should the Royals keep him in the rotation? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Wednesday, and it's another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. I know the same thing, just however you prefer to call it. But at JohnnyJ_15, again, at JOHNYJ_15. You also can listen to us on wherever you listen to podcasts. That's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners, here's how the format works. We bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes at that. We also give you some YouTube shorts after the game. Those will be about a minute long, and you can also count on those into the weekend. So there are 30-minute episodes stop on Friday, which is always going to be a mailbag Friday where you send in your questions, and we get to every single one in the episode. Those YouTube shorts will be happening on Saturday and Sunday, which the Royals will be welcoming the Detroit Tigers to Kauffman Stadium this weekend. Before we get started, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. I wanted to get this segment out before the game tonight. There wasn't a pressing reason other than Noah Cameron will be starting, and this episode may be completely pointless by the end of tonight's game. It might be completely pointless 3 or 4 innings into the game. And I'm not sure if Noah Cameron will make the next start when he's due up in the rotation. I don't know if he's going to be grabbing a spot in this rotation, whether he pitches well or doesn't pitch well tonight, but that's what this segment is for. Andy Rogers reported earlier this afternoon that Seth Lugo is going to be activated on Friday, and he will make the start against Detroit, and then they will just move everybody back one. So you'll have Michael Wacha on Saturday against Tarek Skubal, and then you'll have Chris Bubic on Sunday going up against Keter Montero. So we don't get Bubic versus Tarek Skubal. That's quite unfortunate, but you do get Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, and Chris Bubic throwing against the first-place team and a team that you are now 7.5 games back of heading into tonight's game. So with the way it would be lining up, the Royals have an off day on Monday before they would take on the Cardinals in St. Louis. Then they will go on the road to Chicago and take on the White Sox. And then I want to say they come back home after that. I'm trying to remember if it's the Yankees or not for that series. They do come to town that week. I'm just not sure if it is that week. So, yes, it'll be the Yankees. They'll have back-to-back off days on Monday. They'll have the Yankees in town for 3, and then the Athletics in town for 3 over the weekend. This is more so about looking to next week. So if Lugo starts and then you have Wacha on Saturday and Bubic on Sunday, that would line it up for Michael Lorenzen to start on Tuesday. That would then bring Cole Ragans' spot up on Wednesday. Andy Rogers did report that he would be likely headed off to a rehab start before being activated, which should be relatively soon. So maybe Noah Cameron does make that start on Wednesday, and which his start would be due up, and then you can reevaluate that for the Yankees series when it would be either Cameron or Ragans. This is more so about, does he stay when Cole Ragans is back? We know Noah Cameron's going to have a spot when Seth Lugo's back. There still would be, or at least, yeah, he will still have a open spot in the rotation because they've had to fill 2 spots with Noah Cameron and the bullpen game. Noah Cameron can be filling in the bullpen role where Seth Lugo is replacing Noah Cameron's original spot in the rotation, or however you want to, break it down. With the struggles of Michael Lorenzen, I do wonder if he goes out tonight, speaking of Noah Cameron, and he throws 7 innings of 1-run ball and the Royals win. And if he does that again against St. Louis, right, if he throws 6 innings, it's a quality start. That's 5 starts at the big league level in which he hasn't just given you good outings, he's given you incredibly dominant outings. And the Royals also at this position in the season where they're a game and a half out of a playoff spot, they're 7.5 games out of first place. Aren't you trying to put together the best possible rotation, make the bullpen as strong as it can be? So if Noah Cameron pitches really well and starts 4 and 5, they're going to have a decision to make. And I'm still very confident in Michael Lorenzen and his ability to be valuable for this rotation or for this bullpen. But if Noah Cameron is pitching so well, and you could make a case that over the last two times through the rotation, he has been their best starter, does it make much sense to stash him away in the bullpen or to put him back down in Omaha? That was an easy answer after the start in Tampa, where he took a no-hitter into the 7th inning, because it's one start. He also walked 5 guys, and everybody in that rotation was pitching well, where you couldn't really say, well, let's just move somebody out because he was so good in start 1. 1 start is a hell of a lot different than 5 starts. Now, 5 starts is not an entire season's worth, and he's still a rookie, and eventually these hitters are going to adjust to him. But I do wonder if Cole Ragans can come back and be 100%. Seth Lugo, same thing. And that'll be more of our segment 2 conversation. If they could have the best rotation in baseball with a thriving Noah Cameron, and you have Bubic throwing the way that he is, you have Waka throwing the way that he is, Ragans returns to form, and Seth Lugo returns to form, that's a dominant 5-man rotation. You also could contemplate the 6-man rotation. And I've never been for it. I've never been for it in the first half of the season. I would always rather have the 6-man rotation in August and September, because at that point you have some guys that are maybe throwing on fumes a little bit. They're worn down. We saw it with Seth Lugo last year. They were wanting to be more careful with Cole Ragans as well, never having that type of workload before. Michael Waka had thrown 180 innings, but hadn't in quite some time prior to last season. And this year it applies as well. Chris Bubic has not been a 180 and 190 inning guy in his entire career. You have to expect some form of regression. So that's where it brings it to me of, I believe you're going to need a 6-man rotation at some point. And it's great to know that Noah Cameron can take one of those spots, but this is May. And Michael Lorenzen, if he goes out there and throws well on Monday against St. Louis, that conversation becomes even tougher. Because, in my opinion, the best value for Noah Cameron is in the rotation. It's not in the bullpen. Throwing in long relief, throwing an inning or two. Michael Lorenzen is a bit of that hybrid where he can do both. But I'm fascinated to know what the Royals are going to do with that. I could also have this entire segment blown up if he does not pitch well tonight. If he goes out there and gives up 6 or 7 runs and it's a true rookie start, then I believe you have your answer there. And maybe that's overly critical. Maybe that's asking too much of Noah Cameron to damn near be perfect for all 5 starts of his big league career and throwing 7+ innings every time he takes the ball. Like, that's asking a lot. But to make a rotation change before July 1st, you have to prove that it's really worth it. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. You have to make that move. And with Lorenzen, he's not going anywhere. He's either going to be a starter or he's going to be a bullpen piece for this team. And what I will say is the Royals don't have a true long inning guy. They don't have somebody that when the game is out of control, they can go out there and give you 3 or 4 innings. They do need that at some point. Now, Jonathan Bowen can't be that, even though he started before. He's only thrown in relief this year, even down in Omaha. It's not Evan Sisk, who's no longer on the team. Andrew Hoffman, who they just called up, is probably not that guy. Angel Serpa's not that guy. Daniel Lynch, I feel, is too valuable to be used in a role like that. You need an inning eater in the bullpen, and that might need to be Noah Cameron or it might need to be Michael Lorenzen. But the Royals have to make that decision sooner rather than later. Seth Lugo's coming off the injured list, and Cole Ragans is not far behind him. You want to have your best 5 out there, and you want to make sure you're maximizing the value of both Noah Cameron and Michael Lorenzen. Okay, let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, let's stick with this rotation here. Can Seth Lugo and Cole Ragans return to form, or are injuries going to be a concern for these guys moving forward? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Our title sponsor that we want to be telling you about today is Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And if you're someone like me who has a lot of memberships and streaming services, I lose track sometimes. So to have that all in one place, know which card it's attached to, Monarch Money is the place I go to make sure that everything is in order. So here's what you need to do. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB for half off on your first year. It is excellent news that Seth Lugo will be returning to this rotation because, as we saw last night, the bullpen situation is just always going to be detrimental to your rotation, to your staff, and just to your bullpen in general. It worked out well in San Francisco, but to not have your number one and number two for an extended period of time, we saw the effect and the toll it took on this pitching staff. You're using 4 or 5 guys to maybe have a chance to win that game. And now looking to Friday, you've got the guys that you want for that series. And with Seth Lugo, because I want to go back to what I was teasing before the break, was his injury one that gave me a lot of concern, right? Is it one of those injuries where it could linger, it could flare up again on Friday, and we're back to square one? It absolutely could. That's the scary part about watching pitchers and how an injury can pop up at any given moment, and they might make it through an entire start, and you find out after the game they're being put on the injured list. It can be as subtle as a little blister, and you never notice it, and they just leave the game after the 6th or the 7th, or it can be as big as somebody throwing a ball and immediately knowing something's wrong, and they're taking themselves out of the game. And with Seth Lugo, the Royals did not seem overly concerned at all when it came to his injury. You have the middle finger strain, and I want to say that the Royals were more so pointing to the fact and hinting at the fact that because of a blister he was dealing with on that Mother's Day start, it kind of was overcompensating on the middle finger, and he was using it a lot when he's using all these different pitches, and it led to a strain. That's something that you can keep under control. When you have a strain and it's because you were dealing with the blister, all right, well, maybe you need to find a way where you're not getting a blister in the game. And pitchers deal with blisters all the time, whether it be the ball they're using or the pitch they're throwing. If they're using a variety of different pitches, we know that with Seth Lugo. He loves to snap the ball, snap the curveball. He's got the slow curve. He's got the sweeper. I'd imagine if you're holding it on the seam and that just happens over and over and over again, and you're really laboring through an outing, you're going to develop a blister. Now he knows in this go-around, if I'm having a blister pop up, I can't do what I did the last time. That would eventually lead to a middle finger strain. So that's where my concern level is at. If you couldn't pick it up on what I was just talking about, it's very low. Not to say it couldn't pop up again, but I feel that Seth Lugo can come back and you don't really see that struggle, right? That working back into it, and he's just not quite there, and it won't be that way for 3 or 4 starts. I don't view it that way. I could see him coming out on Friday and pitching very well. Why do I believe that? Because the Royals don't need him to go down for a rehab start. That's where it's not as alarming to me. Not that rehab starts are bad, but it means that through his progression, through his rest, he feels fine. When he's thrown bullpens, when he's gotten that work in, it has not been an issue for him, and it hasn't flared up. And him being the experienced pitcher that he is, I don't envision him making the same mistake again and having that strain because he's dealing with the blister. I believe that's what it was. If it does flare up, though, it's still an injury that you may be dealing with the rest of the year. It just could flare up in the same way that Cole Ragans with this groin injury, it just flared up on him again. So that brings me to number 55 and the ace, or at least going into the year was the ace. I know we got some commenters that call Chris Bubich the ace. So far this season, I can't push back on that. Although the guys that I've talked to also doing Royals podcast and covering this team, Cole Ragans is still viewed as the starter. And if there was a playoff game tomorrow, he would be that game one starter, assuming he's at full health. And that's the big question mark here. And why I'm far more worried. And I'm not going to say it's level 10 out of 10, but it's a lot more concerning than Seth Lugo, in my opinion, because it is the same injury that flared up the first time. And after that first start he made coming off the injured list against the White Sox, we were down in the clubhouse after the game, and he said he felt fine. There was no tug. There was no soreness. There was no issue there with the groin injury, and you move on from it. And then against St. Louis, you could tell that some of those struggles before we first knew about the groin injury were starting to show again in that outing against St. Louis. And he makes a pitch, and he has to take himself out of the game. We come to find out it's the groin injury. Now, here's where I can talk some people off the ledge and maybe even just talk myself off the ledge. Cole Ragans didn't have an IL stint the first time around, right? He just missed one start, which is when Noah Cameron was able to come up and shine in Tampa and take a no-hitter into the seventh inning. So maybe the 2 weeks off and just really getting it calmed down and rested up, that's going to benefit him in the long run, because the strikeout numbers are still going to be there. The velocity is what I'm going to be looking for, where we always assume, well, if the velocity is down, it's a shoulder problem, it's an elbow problem, something is going on there. It can also be a lower body problem because you're just not able to plant the same, you're not able to push off the same. And I can't recall if it's the right or the left groin that he's dealing with. If it's the left groin, that would mean that when he's pushing off, he doesn't feel that comfortable. He feels the discomfort and the pain. If it is the right groin, it's when he's planting, and he might not be able to have the best command. And that's what I saw as well, which is why he had thrown so many pitches and he was grinding through so many starts. The command just wasn't as sharp. And we know when that command is on, he is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And that's what should keep you hopeful about this team. The offense has done what it's done all season long. They have not been consistent enough. They have been a bottom 5 offense in baseball. But this rotation and the bullpen have been able to take some pretty significant gut punches. You know, you go around baseball and you strip away their number 1 and number 2 pitcher. How do they fare in those next couple of series? You know, early on, they lose Hunter Harvey, and there's just not been any signs that he's close to returning. But Hunter Harvey was one of this team's best back-end relievers, and now you've had to piece together the back end of the bullpen. You've had to have different guys step up, and in the rotation, guys have stepped up. But to get those security blankets back and knowing that last year, these were your 2 best arms, to add them to the rotation and also have a number 6 guy that could be penciled into the number 5 spot, that should be encouraging. And knowing that if the offense can ever figure things out and can give some of these top-level arms run support, they're going to be able to go on a tear again, maybe not in the same way it was 17-4, but that was also with little to no offense. If they can get back to the offense they had last year, which wasn't overly impressive, you are looking at a team that can have multiple winning months, can start to gain ground in the standings. And I'm done, as I said, saying, well, the offense is probably about to break out, or we're sure they will break out. I don't know if that's the case. That's why I keep saying if they do it. I don't know for certain if they're going to be able to do it. I do have a lot of confidence, though, that at full strength, full health, this rotation maybe doesn't go unmatched with the rest of baseball. There's some really talented rotations out there, but it's absolutely a top 3 or top 4 rotation in all of baseball. And that is good enough to win you a lot of games with a good bullpen. You don't need 5 runs a game. You need 3.5 to 4, and you're going to have a winning record and a damn good shot to win in the postseason. Okay, we'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, how many of these guys can we count on in the lineup, and what more can you get out of some of the guys struggling? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning into Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. We now have to pivot to the offense. Maybe not we have to. It is a show that we come up with all these segment ideas, and we try to give you our best thought on it, our best opinions on it. And by the way, I do want to take this time to promote something that will be coming up in the next week or two. You can always come check me out on Locked On Royals and get our post-game recaps in the YouTube shorts. But coming up here shortly, we're also going to have the Locked On Royals postcast, where it is just designed for a 15-minute post-game recap. And that'll be by Chance Lebo, who I know very well, a very talented guy. And he'll be a different voice that you'll be able to listen to as well. I'll still be doing everything the exact same. We're actually going to have Chance on the show tomorrow to give a little bit of a background on who he is, his fandom as a Royals fan, and what's going to be in store for you guys. But very excited about that. You'll hear me talking about it throughout the next couple of episodes, but it'll be the Locked On Royals postcast. It'll be very easy to find. And after every single Royals game, that includes the weekends, you're going to be able to listen to Chance give you a quick 15-minute breakdown of what just occurred in the Royals game. But back to this offense and this lineup, right? Who are we going to be able to count on moving forward? Who are we going to need to see more out of it? And honestly, what can you actually get out of those players and in their quest to being a league average offense? Let's keep it simple like that. Let's have a touch of reality and acknowledge that this is not going to be a top 10 offense in baseball. And you're probably chuckling just hearing me say the words Royals offense and top 10 in baseball. It's not going to happen. They could have stretches maybe where they could jump into the top 10. I know for a point in time last year, the Royals had one of the better averages for a chunk of time. It didn't end up being that way in the end. And this team is nowhere near that. We are 56, 57 games into the season, and yet this offense has just not gotten going. Who are you going to be able to count on? And even guys that are slumping, are you going to be able to count on them? Bobby Witt Jr. is number one. And I would say that's pretty much where it should stop. I'm not trying to be too pessimistic here, but in terms of looking at a guy who can be a unbelievable talent in your lineup, a premier player, one of the best players in the game, there's one guy in the lineup you can count on to be a well above average league bat. That's Bobby Witt Jr. And for playoff teams out there, you probably need 2 to 3 really good bats in the lineup if you're going to make a deep run in the postseason. If you're as lucky as the Dodgers, you can have 3 MVP candidates hitting 1, 2, and 3 in your lineup. In Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman. The Dodgers aren't everybody, as we know. And so for the Royals, there's one guy where even in struggles like he is right now, it's not alarming to me. I feel that he's going to still be one of the top hitters in the entire sport. Now it brings me to tier 2. Guys you are expecting to just be league average bats. Guys that can be totally fine to play every single day. They're not going to wow you. They're just going to do their job. I believe you can count on Vinny Pasquantino to be that. I believe you can count on Jonathan India actually to be that. I feel that his averages will even out based off his track record to be a 100 OPS plus guy. I believe he can get to that point. I actually believe so far through these 56, 57 games, you can count on Maikel Garcia to be a league average bat, partially because he's well above league average right now. And when there is going to be the regression, I could see him regressing to average bat. But that's, again, me counting on that happening. Salvador Perez is the tough one. Salvador Perez's underlying data looks good. Salvador Perez is one of the unluckiest hitters in baseball. And you've heard me say this before, that you should never count out Salvador Perez until he's just not playing anymore. There will come a time where he doesn't have a great season, and that'll be it. But do I feel that a resurgence is coming? Maybe for now, I'll say that I can count on him to be a league average bat. Now, just get me to the 90 to 100 range in terms of OPS plus. Just get me to that by the end of the year, and I can live with it. So you have, what is that? 4 players: India, Pasquantino, Garcia, and Salvador Perez. Then you get to tier 3. And in my opinion, everybody below that it's unpredictable. And maybe you are somebody listening going, I wouldn't even put that many guys in the league average bat range because they haven't been that. And maybe you're not expecting them to be. But I would say with track records, you have more from Vinny Pasquantino. You have more from Jonathan India, Salvador Perez. Garcia is really the outlier, and he's been your best hitter in terms of average this season. But he doesn't have a phenomenal track record. But you get to the bottom half, you got Massey, you have Kyle Isbell, Mark Canha's got quite a track record. He's just not an everyday player, in my opinion. John Rave, right? You have Nick Lofton. You have Freddie Fermin. You have Drew Waters. I'm even going to throw in Jack Caglione here. And until they bring in another bat, they bring in another trade acquisition, those guys are all going to be in tier 3. And here's why. Either A, they've never shown at the big league level they've been a league average bat. They've never been able to do it. B, even if they catch fire, I don't see them being a league average bat. That's where Michael Massey falls with me right now. And that's where Kyle Isbell falls with me. That when the regression happens, you are going to see a below average bat. It doesn't mean that they will have no value whatsoever. If Michael Massey can bump that 32 runs created plus to about 70 or 75 this year, it's still a drastic improvement over what's happening right now. Kyle Isbell's defense makes him incredibly valuable if he hits 240 or 250. Maybe not incredibly valuable, but good enough, right? And Drew Waters, though in his first year in Kansas City, he burst onto the scene a little bit. That's not consistent enough for me. And that was also 2 years ago, not last year. But that tier 3 group, and why I include Jack Caglione, I've never seen him play at the big league level, and none of us have. John Rave, same thing. We've seen 5-6 at-bats from him. Nick Lofton, haven't seen him do it at the big league level. And so you've got a large portion, a large chunk of players that are below league average bats on this roster. You have one guy you're not going to have to worry about whatsoever. You have 2 guys you can expect them to be league average, but to be a playoff team, 2 of those 4 and tier 2 need to be with Bobby Witt Jr., where at some point you go, all right, they are going to be an above average bat. They are going to be somebody that you can expect to start a rally, drive in runs, drive the bus on any given game. And you need to take some of those guys in tier 3 and get them to tier 2. Maybe that can be Jack Caglione. Maybe that can be Nick Lofton. Maybe that can be Drew Waters. Maybe that can be Michael Massey. I've got my thoughts. You've certainly got your thoughts. And we'll see what version of this offense we get tonight. Massey did get scratched with some ankle soreness. Noah Cameron's getting the ball. The Reds are throwing their ace in Hunter Green. And got to win tonight. You lose tonight, you'll have the off day tomorrow, and you're going to welcome the Detroit Tigers, who are 8 games ahead of you in the standings. Good news, you're 2 games back of being in second place in the American League Central, and 2 games back or a game and a half back of holding a playoff spot in the American League. We'll see what Noah Cameron looks like. Hopefully I don't get bit in the ass here and doing a segment before the show and then he doesn't pitch well, but I would love to talk about it a little bit more tomorrow, and we'll have Chance Lebo on the show, the new host of Royals Postcast. We'll talk about that a little bit, but if he pitches well, I'm excited to talk about what decision the Royals may have to make with their rotation. But that's going to do it for us. Another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For your second listen today, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we'll be joined by Chance Lebo and break down what happened in the series finale against the Reds. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.